In 1997, we released the first Black Swamp handled castanets into the concert percussion market. Our unique handle design and construction allowed performers to easily play the castanets in the air and easily adjust the tension. Over the years, this handle concept largely remained the same, with the exception of a few tweaks to the knob assembly. We'll get to these in a minute. Although our current castanet models are completely elastic-free, our original and subsequent handle design generations did use elastic. Unfortunately, this type of material can wear out or break over time, leading to sluggish or non-existent castanet action and frustrated performers. However, as long as the castanets themselves are in good condition, we fully agree their age should not affect their performance. Restringing castanets is a simple process that can breathe new life into your vintage BSP instruments. And this guide will walk you through the steps to restringing your older BSP castanets quickly and efficiently. Before starting, you'll need to identify which generation of Black Swamp castanets you own. First generation. These early model castanets are strung up solely with elastic, no internal wizardry. The knob was simply used to hold the elastic in place after adjusting to your preferred tension. Simple and effective. Second generation. With this updated handle design, we advanced to a functional tension knob. Righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. You can identify this generation by seeing a small notched bolt in the back of the handle that the elastic was inserted into. Third generation, same functional tension knob, but the internal bits were updated. A set screw was used to secure the elastic in a cute little extension knot. Basically a quicker and more consistent assembly for us. Next, you'll need to grab some tools. Definitely a pair of scissors and small needle nose pliers, or 2 pairs of pliers for the second generation handle. A small flat head screwdriver may come in handy for that second generation handle as well. You'll also need a 3/32 Allen wrench for the set screw if you have the third generation handle. Materials needed include 1/4 inch elastic cut into several 12 to 14 inch pieces. This material can be purchased at any local fabric store. Obviously, you'll also need your existing castanets and handles for restringing. Just so we're all on the same page, initially stringing up the castanets to the handle is exactly the same for each of these 3 generations. It's actually securing the elastic to the knob, which is specifically different. So we'll get started with this initial assembly and then break down steps for securing the different generations. Cool? Great. Let's get started. Okay, so we're gonna restring some castanets. First thing you're gonna need is your elastic. Hopefully you found some at your local fabric store, and you're gonna need about 12 to 14 inches of 1/4 inch elastic. So I'm gonna cut my piece right there. We have these fancy homemade tools that we made like 25 years ago. They help us string up castanets a little quicker. You might need like a small screwdriver or something long and thin that will help you push the elastic through the holes in the handle. And the first thing I'm gonna do is thread the elastic through the holes in the castanets. So you pair up your castanet. Sometimes I play them in advance. I know this sounds weird, but one side sometimes does sound better than the other. So I found the side that I like kind of speaks the best. And I'm gonna thread my elastic through one end in the right side, the other end in the left hole here. This is important, a couple things. Basically, you want the ends of your elastic to be even, and then you want a little bit of a loop left on top of the castanet. So that's gonna be important in a moment. So now that I have my castanets threaded, I'm gonna attach them to the handle here. Now I'm gonna pull this elastic until the castanets meet the handle, but I'm gonna leave that little loop on top. So I got both pieces of elastic coming out the back of the handle here. I'm gonna take one end and I'm gonna give it a couple twists in the elastic there. I'm gonna come around the front. I'm gonna thread that elastic through that loop that we had on top of the castanets. And then I'm gonna put it through this center hole. So now it's coming out the back side of the castanet handle. So now I have the other side. I'm going to give it a couple twists, bring it around the front, slip it through that top loop and down through that center hole. Both pieces of elastic are coming through the back of the handle through that center hole. Okay, so now we're going to tighten up the castanets, tighten up the elastic against the handle. To me, this is one of the hardest parts. It's just kind of tricky. First thing you're going to want to do is grab these little elastic ears sort of behind the castanets. You want to get in there with your index finger, grab both of those ears. So I'm pulling back on this elastic and keeping the castanets pushed against the handle with my thumb. I'm going to pull back. What that does is tightens up that loop nice and tight. Remember that loop we passed the elastic through? It's going to tighten that up, and it's really going to hold the castanets to the handle tightly. So again, I'm going to pull back on those, holding with my thumb on the castanets against the handle. I let go. So now these ears are kind of loose. There's a lot more slack in them. So how we're going to get rid of that is we're going to pull back on these individual pieces of elastic coming out the back. So I'm going to grab one of those and pull back. Remember, we made those twists or those loops in the elastic. Those loops allow the elastic, once it's tight, to fall into the grooves on the castanet. I did one end, now I'm going to do the other. Make sure that elastic falls into those grooves. All the while, I am still holding with my thumb, and that keeps everything nice and tight. So now the castanets are held firmly to the handle. From here, securing the elastic to the handle is going to be a little different for each generation. Feel free to wait patiently for the directions addressing your specific handle type, or jump ahead to find the instructions relevant to you immediately. Tie a knot in the ends of the elastic 2 to 3 inches from the handle. Bring the loop of elastic up over the top of the castanets. Loosen the black knob without removing it. Twist and cross the elastic in front of the handle. Place the crossed elastic underneath the knob, and then tighten the knob until the elastic is held in place. Important: do not over-tighten the knob, as it may begin to cut the elastic. The notch cut in the bolt may need to be widened in order to fully insert the elastic. Use a small flathead screwdriver to gently open the notch. Use needle nose pliers to grab hold of the elastic and feed it through the notch of the bolt in the back of the handle. This is where a second pair of pliers comes in handy, one to hold the elastic and one to compress the notch. Compress the elastic within the notch by squeezing the bolt with needle nose pliers. Cut off any excess elastic and then turn the adjustment knob to the desired tension. So if your knob action feels a little bit loose, there is a nut in here kind of behind that threaded post or that bolt, and that nut can loosen up over time. It's really difficult to see, but there is a nut in there. So what I did is I took the small needle nose pliers, I firmly held the knob, and then I was able to grab that little nut and give it a twist to tighten it up, and that tightened up the knob and then the action of the castanets. So that's pretty loose, and I can tighten it up. So that's a tighter response. Use needle nose pliers to grab hold of the elastic and feed it through the notch of the nut in the back of the handle. Thread the set screw into place atop the elastic, ensuring it holds the elastic securely. Important: do not over-tighten the set screw, as this may damage the elastic. Cut off any excess elastic and then turn the adjustment knob to the desired tension. Following these steps will ensure that your Black Swamp castanets are restrung properly, restoring their functionality and ensuring smooth percussive action. Of course, if you have any questions, maybe give the video and directions one more view. If you're still having trouble or simply don't want to mess with it, we also offer a restringing service by a qualified castanet technician. That's usually me. Note, we are not able to replace any missing parts for repair of older castanet models. This would be a restringing service only. Okay, so all this being said, if you're tired of elastic, never want to deal with it again in your life, definitely buy a new pair of Black Swamp handled castanets. Elastic-free tension system, spring steel here on top that's tightened down with a screw. We set the tension in-house so you get a nice quality castanet sound, playable at any dynamic with no elastic. If you want an even easier option to perform on, definitely check out our Overture or Pro castanet machine. Has the exact same tensioning system as our handled castanets here, but mounted on a frame. So you can simply play with your hands.